Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Marketplace Code. I am your co-host over here today, David. Very excited to have our first guest of the show. This is a big step for us. I know we've been doing just me and Michael for the past few episodes. Today we have what a way to kick off our guest list over here. We have the amazing Dallas Counts. His reputation precedes him, and I'll let him just go ahead and speak for himself, give him a little bit of an intro, and then we'll talk about it.
Thanks, David. Excited to be here and did not know I was the first guest, so honored to have that. But excited to be here. Background for me is, I'm a longtime guy at retail. 18 years in retail. Most of those were at Walmart, 15 years there. Starting in operations for the first year and a half before moving into merchandising, which I really appreciated. I don't know that we're going to get into that too much today, but having that operational mindset and background when you're becoming a merchant, understanding how stores work, was really important to be able to be a good merchant. But was able to move into merchandising, a bunch of different roles there across mostly food, where I worked in, Department 82, which is your impulse merchandise, candy, gum, mints, snacks, all the fun things. Oh, so fun. Always trying to figure out how to get the kids to buy the things so that, while they're standing in the queue, very different today because most people don't do queuing anymore. You go straight to the self-checkout and you're out. Which I got to do that while I was there too. That was a little fun. But went into ice cream, frozen desserts.
Oh, wow. That's delicious.
It was tough to go from candy to ice cream back to back. My pant size definitely increased a good bit from those 5-6 years of sugar. But if I had been told as a kid that this was a potential job, I'd have been trying to get that my whole life. Like, you can buy candy for the world. You can buy ice cream for the world. This is the best. So it was a ton of fun. Definitely had to get the waist back in check afterwards, though. So spent some time there. Got to go over to Sam's Club, understand the wholesale model, the club model, and really enjoyed that. Ran the Cat 40 beverage business at Sam's Club. And then made my migration back to Walmart at quite an interesting time. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit, but ran the entertainment, toys, and seasonal e-commerce team. And that was during COVID and some big transitions that Walmart was undergoing. So that was a pretty fun time.
Yeah.
And then I made the journey outside of Walmart. I'd done corporate for a long time. I had been, there's this guy named Eric Howerton in the area. I'm sure a lot of people may know him in the Northwest Arkansas area. And he had been talking to me quite a bit about a startup that he had called White Spider. And, I'd had the entrepreneurial idea for quite a while, but finally he wore me down and had a weak moment. And I made the decision to go join Eric. And I'm really glad that I did, though. And it's been an incredible journey. He's still a dear friend. And, now I'm onto my own entrepreneurship.
Super exciting. I love the full experience, the Walmart for so long, really learning all the different models over there, then agency, and now your own gig, taking all those experiences, relationships, just smart moves, smart moves.
Well, it's definitely a blessing to be in Northwest Arkansas. I know a lot of people that may be listening to this may not understand. Some have probably been here and totally understand, but the ability to pivot your career and have everything that you want at your fingertips in Northwest Arkansas and the amount of opportunity here is immense. And so very fortunate to be in a spot where I can make those decisions and it be pretty easy to make those changes.
Yeah, it's also pretty crazy. I mean, I haven't been here that long. Haven't been here for the first time I was here was, I don't know, let's say a year or so ago, which is very recent in things. But you've been here forever, and it's just seeing that evolution over time just within the city over here. It's all
right. I'll tell a quick little story. Definitely totally off script. Not that we have a script, but so I was actually born in Fayetteville. So most people don't necessarily know, but Northwest Arkansas is made up of a number of cities. So you have Fayetteville kind of in the south, Springdale, Lowell, then you have Rogers and Bentonville. And that kind of makes up Northwest Arkansas. You also have Bella Vista and some other smaller places, but that's what we commonly here in the area referred to as Northwest Arkansas. It's kind of its own metropolitan area. If you were to put them all together, it might feel like a reasonable size city. Each one individually is pretty small, but because I grew up in Fayetteville, was born in the 80s, I actually had the very fortunate opportunity to meet Sam Walton, which is not normal for someone of my age. because, Sam did pass away in the early 90s. I was pretty young, but my grandfather had a car dealership in Fayetteville, and I think it was actually in 90, so I would have been like 7 years old or so at the time, and he came in to pick up a car from my grandfather. And I didn't know this till way later in life, but apparently my grandfather and Sam actually knew each other pretty well because they were both early entrepreneurs in Northwest Arkansas. So I feel like I've had that entrepreneur spirit for quite a while. So pretty excited, to now be doing that on my own. But I never really thought about that experience being meaningful until I spent my time at Walmart. And if anybody is listening to this from Walmart, they all know, like, Sam probably built the most impressive company culture of any company, like, has been studied and continuing to be studied. And everything that he really stood for is still, to this day, really shown in the values and the ethics and how they do business, which is really cool. Yeah.
I mean, you see the people that have been at Walmart for a while and just their mentality and just, you see so many of them, branching off, like you're saying, to these different companies and the success they've had there just because of that culture, that personality that they strive for. Definitely very, very apparent. That's crazy. Did your dad sell him his truck? Is that like...
So my grandfather actually was selling a car to Alice, so Sam's daughter at the time, and they had come to pick it up. And I was like 7 years old, so memory's a little fuzzy on exactly how it went down. So my grandfather had multiple sclerosis. So for those that know that, it's a degenerative disease that really impacts your nervous system, etc. And so you lose motor functionality. And at this point in his life, my grandfather had moved to a motorized cart, which in like the 90s was a big deal, right? Like, that wasn't really a big thing in the medical industry then. Now, obviously, it's very prevalent. But I do remember, so I was in the conference room watching cartoons or something after school, like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. My mom worked for my grandfather. And so she came and got me out of the conference room and was like, hey, you need to come meet this man. And I need you to remember this moment in time because this person you're going to meet is going to be in history books. If she hadn't given me that cue, I honestly don't know if I would have even remembered this moment. But she would talk about it all the time as I was growing up. So I went out to meet, ended up being Sam, right? So Sam Walton and Alice. And one of the things I do remember is that, so my grandfather was in a motorized wheelchair, is that when I went out to meet him, he was on his knee talking face to face with my grandfather. Instead of standing above him, talking down to him because he was motorized, he got down on a knee. And at this time, he was well into, I think I can't remember exactly how old Sam was when he passed away, but it had to be in his like late 70s, 80s. And he was this courteous individual. And my grandfather at the time was probably like in his 50s. So there was definitely an age gap, but the respect that I remember from this was pretty cool.
That's
so I remember that, and I remember the hat. He definitely had a Walmart hat on, and that's about all I really kind of remember that. And I just remember him shaking my hand and talking to me and probably asking me a few questions, but I can't remember what they were.
Dang, those were like, are you ready to take over Walmart? Do you want a job?
I don't know. I'll leave that to the people that are really good at it. That's definitely not my forte. So it's cool. Sorry, I totally sidetracked. But.
No, I love that. I think it's like, it's great to get a little bit of that culture. People tuning in, they want to understand, like, not just the technical pieces and that, but like get a little bit of a glimpse, especially those who haven't been here. Highly recommend just like the trip down here, just to see, or left here, right, or whatever direction it is for you. But just coming out here and just seeing what it's like, it's fascinating for me. Like, you think Arkansas, you think, just nothing, right? But then it's like, I'm here, I'm like, I feel like I'm in like a really like cool part of town. I'm like,
well, even when you hit the ground off the airport, you're still probably kind of going, ooh, where am I? Because the airport is kind of still out in a cow field.
But then you get to downtown Bentonville, it's like, whoa, this is like it's not just like nice. It's cool. It's got modern. It's like got not just forget the people culture, but just like the art culture and everything is just like very, I guess, unexpected. But just what especially what Walmart with the Waltons have just brought to this city is just it's really crazy.
I think a couple things you mentioned there, like the Waltons have done an incredible job really taking some of the benefit that they've been able to enjoy with Walmart's success and spreading that back into the community. The world-class bike trails, Alice's art museum in Northwest Arkansas. I think when she first announced that, people were like, what in the world? Why is this incredible art going to be in Arkansas? They're like, this should be in, the Met or somewhere really fancy, not in Arkansas. Then they come here and they see the museum and they're like, okay, like this is incredible. So definitely a lot to appreciate in that regard. But yeah, if you haven't been here, definitely make the trip. Definitely worth it.
Most definitely. So I guess in the same vein, what do we want to talk about today? I want to chat about the evolution of, Walmart, especially, being there for that amount of time, seeing it really transition into the digital, I don't know if the digital age is the right word to put it, but really their evolution into e-commerce, touching on marketplace, touching on, where things are today. You mentioned COVID being a major factor. And what's cool is you don't just have experience within a one niche. We're working in many different categories. Sounds like a lot of CPG, which is, obviously, very big business, but as well as an ETS. So very good dynamic, very good understanding. So I'd like to kind of hear a little bit what was, give us an overview of how things started. When did you feel like it was going from we're just a store business to the e-com piece just kind of kicking in, that evolution over time? I'd love to hear a little bit about that story.
Yeah, absolutely. I never really thought about it at the time or any of the jobs that I was in, but in reflecting, I was fortunate to be in some intersections to really experience some major changes. And I think that began so before I moved into merchandising, I spent a year in our real estate division. And in real estate, there's a division called the Project Management Office, PMO. I don't know if they still have it or if it's still called the same thing. But essentially, this PMO would manage all of the store fixture or new remodel requests. So if you want to switch out refrigeration units, or you needed new refrigerators to go in line within the belts or the check lanes, or if you needed a new fixture that would go for your makeup within Maybelline's rolling out something new, and they wanted all that would roll through this project management office. And that project management office would coordinate between the buying team called Goods Not for Resale, Department 99, and the store design, store layout, store print. Basically, they would have to get all this added so that there was good record. We knew that it would sit. We did all the fire testing, all that kind of stuff. So that PMO was a pretty interesting intersection. I got to meet a ton of people, worked across all these different departments, from merchandising to ISD to all the store layout, transportation, logistics, Goods Not for Resale. Well, one of the projects that I got to start while I was on that that team was self-checkout merchandising.
Wow.
Speedy checkout merchandising. So before self-checkouts, you guys might remember, Walmart used to have something called 10 or 20 items or less. So it was for small basket, express checkout, right? And they were usually on the ends, but by either the food entrance or the home entrance. And you would have a few of those where it's just, I got a small basket, just trying to get in and out. So they were called speedy checkouts. Well, historically, there was no merchandise on those speedy checkouts. It was just a cash wrap with a cashier, and you go out. Well, there's a lot of opportunity to engage with the customer while they're in that speedy checkout. You think gas stations for forever have been merchandising, and they're similar model.
Quick. Yeah.
So I got to start a project in real estate to merchandise the speedy checkouts, which was really cool. And then evolve from there, I went to become the buyer for that desk, and I got to finalize that speedy checkout merchandiser, and we evolved it. But then when I was the buyer of Impulse, so D82, we also rolled out self-checkouts. And then as soon as we rolled those out, it was like, well, we just learned we should have put merchandise in front of speedy checkouts, which, by the way, was an insane project. We spent, I think, $15 million on fixtures, something like that, for the speedy checkouts. And in the first year, we had an incremental $400 million in sales.
Wow.
Wow. Incredible. So we definitely knew that as soon as self-checkouts rolled around, we needed to also merchandise those. So I had this cool evolution, not even just from a digital perspective, but from a physical perspective of how are customers shopping, customer behavior, when they have someone that's doing the interacting for them versus they're interacting with a device. So as I've gotten older and kind of looked back in my career, I'm like, man, I've really gotten to kind of be engaged in every step of the way as the customer has evolved, how they shop. So that, went on to, when I was in ice cream, we rolled out the very first grocery Walmart website. So if you'll remember, they didn't used to be integrated.
Right.
There was a web page for grocery.walmart.com, and there was a regular walmart.com. All food was on grocery, all general merchandise, consumables, etc., was on the regular. And so when we did that, we were asked to help build the taxonomy. and we were merchants. We knew nothing at this time about digital. So that was pretty cool getting to like help them do that. Then I went to Sam's Club, got to learn different in how the customer engages in a club model. And then I got to come back from Sam's Club to Walmart during a really pivotal time. When I came back to Walmart was during COVID, and it was right when Walmart decided they were going to merge the buying team for digital and the buying team for physical. So they used to have two completely different buying teams. The buying team for digital used to sit in San Bruno, Sunnyvale area in California, and obviously the physical in-store was here in Bentonville, Arkansas. So that was pretty...
Yeah, that's major.
Which was huge.
Yeah.
And then obviously the evolution of the Walmart website to the new platform where they integrate both what we call the grocery. We used to call them the blue and the orange hallway. That's probably just for the internal people. I don't know that everybody external would know that. But we merged the food and the general merchandise website into one. That was a big change. And we had COVID during all this as well. So a lot of different things. And within those website evolutions, obviously we had store pickup, we had delivery from store, and this evolution of how does a customer shop online but still get their product. I said a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a breath and drink.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, so many different points that I want to like kind of dig into a little bit. You mentioned like just the merchants now, being on top of both the digital and the in-store and how much that has impacted things, right? Because now they're responsible for not just like how their store items are doing, but also like how their categories are doing within the digital realm, which, eventually now even marketplace, like third party, like it's crazy. Like, but like the merchant has they matter, like the marketplace sellers matter to them in a degree because their categories need to improve on both realms. It's not just about a specific supplier. It's not just about a specific shelf. It's this full digital shelf and physical shelf under one. So it's pretty interesting. And that kind of is what's led to what I believe today, a lot of these digital native brands having a little bit more of a streamlined process to get in store, because it's not, they're factoring in a big part of the merchant's P&L, because, hey, check it out. This guy just came to Walmart a few years ago, got the opportunity through Marketplace. They're killing it. They don't even know what 1P is or whatever they're not even talking about. They're just 3P, but building these major businesses. And I was like, wait, let's talk to these guys. Let's see if there's opportunity then. And that's like a classic, like online to shelf story just because of this change. And just, again, like Walmart, I guess, recognizing the direction, right? I'm just curious, like, were there a lot of conversations of, let's say, Amazon or just e-commerce as a whole that was kind of leading? And how was that like, was that a big conversation internally, or like that you were getting that pressure, like, oh, we got to do e-com?
Well, I mean, and I can't believe I said this 2-letter word yet, but no different than AI is active in today's conversation and how we're evolving. E-commerce was a big part of that conversation. And I think the buzzword we used to use then that was really hot wasn't e-commerce, it was omnichannel. It is, how do we become this omnichannel retailer? And one of the facets of omnichannel is you have to be good at e-commerce. And so obviously Amazon was a big part. They went from, when I first started, not even being on the radar, we talked about, Target back then, or Kroger, Dollar General, some of these other companies that weren't that much smaller than Walmart in the scale of things, right? Now they're significantly smaller, right? Especially when you look at stock market and you look at market caps. Like Target is now, I think, like 1/10 the size of like what Walmart is from a market cap perspective. Yeah. Back then, we weren't that far apart.
It's crazy.
And so we went from the evolution of talking about our brick and mortar competitors to no longer really talking about brick and mortar competitors with exceptions, right? So price was a big deal when Aldi came into the US. That was a big deal, right? I'd always worked in food. Price has always been the forefront. So no matter what, that has always been what Walmart stood for. And still does to this day. So I would say like that kind of helped facilitate things. But then as Amazon and e-commerce grew, Walmart went from this place that you could get everything to, oh, there's more things in the world than just what a supercenter can hold. And a supercenter can hold roughly 140 to 150,000 items. But when you get on Amazon and they started hitting that critical mass and they've got 500 million items that you can pick from, then you can start to feel the difference between your assortment and what you can get in a store and what you can get online. And then as that evolution of ship speed, really ramped up.
For sure.
They did a great job opening up, fulfillment centers across the United States, strategic locations, being able to try to get that ship speed really down. I still remember, one of the first times I ever ordered from online and I got my package in like a day. Like that was a big deal. It's like, what did you
now we need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
now, like I still been to Arkansas, still order everything from Walmart. I have the ability to express delivery. I can get stuff in 30 minutes or less.
Insane.
30 minutes or less. So if I'm just grilling out and I don't have something, or maybe I got a home project, and instead of like stopping my project and having to run to the store to pick up some nail screws, whatever tool, something going on, I can just have it delivered and it not miss a beat in my project. It's great. It doesn't really cost, like the cost is minimal.
Yeah.
And they're already low prices. So like I pay for the extra convenience, like I'm probably just paying the same price I would if I'd gone somewhere else.
Yeah. It's been driving to the store, forget about it, Yeah.
It's time waste plus the gas, like.
For sure. But then they can't hit you with the impulse merchant,
Fair. Yeah, fair.
No, but that was an interesting thing. I was sidetracked out of this conversation, but like impulse merchandise within e-com, like there is that like, at CAD, what do they call it? When you like just at the end of your card, there's like stock up. I think they call it stock up.
You also have the My Items, which is a big piece, right? So anytime you're purchasing something, they now can be like, hey, remember, you haven't bought this in a while and you used to, like, do you need this again? And I think it's more of the impulse that you're getting nowadays. Like getting some of those true impulse items, like sugary candy, is a little bit harder. I think the retailers are still doing their best to put those items in the right place. And I think the consumer still would be, open to engaging with that product as long as it's not intrusive, right? So trying to find the ways to add that into the experience, which I was obviously trying to do when I was in e-commerce,
right? Without
it being intrusive and being, there's that permissibility by the customer that you can put this into my user experience. Because above all, user experience is most
definitely.
From the retailer perspective, you need that to be easy, flawless for that customer. Otherwise, they're not going to come back.
No, for sure. And it's like seeing the evolution in the e-commerce space for that customer experience, just like you're saying, just having the two websites, realizing this is not a long-term solution. We see what's going on the, on the other side of the fence. Like, let's tighten this all up. And I don't know, the proof is in the pudding, right? What was it? What did it cost? 700 billion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What the heck?
716 or something.
Oh my God. That's great. It's like, that's got it on top, Walmart on top, baby. It's really crazy. And yeah, just, being that competitor in the e-com world, and just their growth over there, it just shows the cutting edge. I'm just curious, like going back to, working with these suppliers in these different departments, what was their take on it? Like these people I don't know, did they understand e-com? Like what was were you getting a lot of pushback from them? Like, oh, forget that online stuff. We're just trying to sell our products retail.
It's a good question. And I'm going to answer this a little bit different. I think it depends on the supplier. So I worked in two different divisions and had two very different understandings with my supply base on e-com. When I was in food, that was not a heavy e-com item in the beginning, right? There just not a lot of people bought food online.
Yeah.
And back then ship speeds weren't what they are today. And so there was a resistance to really want to lean in. On the flip side, when I worked with, entertainment, toys, and seasonal, where TVs and other electronic items or toys had been ordered online for years because you didn't have that immediate need. Like food, typically there's a more immediate need. If you were buying a toy or something, you're probably thinking further out. There's an event at Christmas, a birthday, baby shower, something that's happening that's causing you to want to go purchase something. So it's more planned, you have more time. So there's been that ease of use in like that general merchandise section where you could order online further out. The supply base received it very different, kind of depending on the history of their category. So the food, I definitely saw resistance at first. And, there is an expense to being able to play meaningfully in those spaces. And so if you wanted to play in that space, there typically was a cost associated to some degree. And I'm not saying like the retailer is asking for money, but whether that's in your fulfillment chain, how you're structured, how you're set up, are you DSP?
Advertising, listing optimization, just time, it's like...
Yeah, and even just in the beginning, it's like, are you in the FC? Do you have to ship a different truck to a different location? There was this added complexity that, was a cost. And so there was some resistance there, like, we don't need it. It's it's not meaningful to our business because back then it was probably a point of their total sales. Nowadays, right? Like you've got probably 30+% penetration on your digital purchasing within that category. In fact, you probably have a higher penetration growth in food now than you do even in general merchandise because there is the convenience of speed.
Yeah.
I transparently have been in a store to buy my own groceries in probably a year. It's just so easy to do all the ordering online now. You can get it within, again, 30 minutes, same day, whatever it may be.
It's so good.
But definitely different resistance from different ones. And so I think nowadays, no, but there was in the beginning. And I think you've seen that across other things beyond just e-commerce. There's not just been, hey, we want you to sell online. There's been, hey, we want you to sell online, but we also want your extended assortment on Marketplace. We also want you to advertise. Hey, we want you to lean into Centella data. Like there's these other things where there's this initial resistance. But I think I'm going to go maybe a little off on
this. Please, this is so insightful.
I think one of the things I would like, depending, like if you're in that supplier community and you're listening to this, that I would encourage you to is partnership is important. And what do I mean by that? I mean partnership with the retailer and your company. The more you're willing to lean in with the retailer, the more they're going to be willing to lean in with you. As a merchant, if I had a supplier that was willing to test and learn with me, I'm giving them opportunities I might not give somebody else. Because guess what? On my eval, there's also things where I'm supposed to be driving company initiatives and I've got to find the way to do it. And maybe I don't know the answer out of the gate, but if I have someone that's willing to test with me, they're going to be rewarded for that because once I learn from that, I am going to roll out those practices to the rest of the suppliers. And they're going to have to do it anyway if they want to continue to be a meaningful player. So I think
opportunity to new
figuring out how you really lean in on those programs, whether, it was back in the day, like getting your extended assortment on Marketplace. You might not want to do that. It does create some complexities, like having to manage your price different. You got to understand like more of your Amazon play, your Walmart play, your Walmart 1P play, your Amazon 1P play, your Kroger play. Yeah. It adds complexity, but it also adds opportunity if you really go for it. And I'm sure we'll probably get there, but that evolution of how do you get in store, right? The holy grail of Walmart for forever has been like, I want my item on the shelf in the store. There's still a lot of reasons you want that. Like it's still very meaningful and it can produce the most revenue for your company, but the path to get there is not the same that it used to be.
And those, even like the extreme of that is those suppliers who don't adopt and they resist, and then even when it does become standard, they're so behind in it, they end up losing their shelf space to that digital guy who did care, and that guy who maybe was just a marketplace player, and suddenly it's like, what the heck? I've been doing this, and it's like, no, you're not. You got to keep up. Things start changing.
That's an example I actually used to use when I was running entertainment toys and seasonal. So one of the things that I appreciated about getting to be an e-com but having a merchant background is I would still get to sit in on the big supplier meetings. I would try to help offer other perspectives. And so one of the perspectives I used to offer is, look, just because what you might think is store traffic may be declining because there's this transition to online, that doesn't mean that the number of units moving through that building are declining. Because as Walmart has built, they have built a very good fulfillment network with their stores to ship from the store, deliver from the store, do pickup and delivery. And so just because the people walking in that store may, and actually I don't think they have declined. I think it's still growing, surprisingly, even with all the e-commerce traffic. If it's not growing, it's probably flat. Right. I think there's still more than 140 or 50 million people every week going through a Walmart in the US, which is just mind-boggling.
Word.
But the units through that store are going up.
Yeah, I mean, 4 out of 5 channels are.
So as we think about that, a traditional basic of merchandising is pack and a half. What is pack and a half? That means you need enough shelf space that you can fit a full case and then some on the shelf. And that's step 1. Step 2 is days of supply. You need at least 3 days of supply to make weekend days of supply even to make sure that you don't go out of stock on the shelf. Okay. Well, that was just foot traffic. Well, now it's foot traffic plus e-com traffic because they're using those shelves to pick. Everybody I'm sure has been in the store, has seen the Walmart pickers picking orders off the shelf. Sometimes they can do some high volume items through special setups in the back room, or maybe they've, done some of the tests like we have over Store 100 where they have a little micro fulfillment center that they can use for some of the high volume stuff, but they're picking on the floor. So the higher volume your item is online that is fulfilled for store means you need more shelf space in store. So if you lean into that online piece, you're driving up your velocity on an actual shelf. Well, guess what? The more velocity you go, the more shelf space you need. The more shelf space you need, the less competition shelf space is going to be there. So there's this.
It makes so much sense.
There's this aspect of like the better you can do online as a 1P player, the better you're going to have space in store.
I mean, I think a lot of suppliers are definitely feeling that now. I think some of them maybe it took a little bit of the negative. Maybe I don't know a lot. There's definitely those took a negative piece and seeing the ones who did lean in and now seeing that success. But definitely those who've seen the success who did lean in earlier, definitely a lot of improvement. This just it just makes so much more sense now when you understand the merchants dealing with both digital and store. That's it. It's the same product, it's the same shelf. It all impacts each other. There is an omni market, you know.
I think the cool thing about it too is there were definitely a lot of big players in the space that were resistant, but it gave way to some of the smaller up and coming brands. And when they were willing to lean in, they are now big brands and have probably done well and been purchased by some of these CPGs.
Right.
Like if they leaned into the e-commerce and the spending on Walmart Connect, they gained the sales velocity. They didn't needed the shelf space. Well, then guess what? As your main items do well, then you want the line extensions. I want the extra, flavors or colors or scents, whatever it might be, depending on the category you're in. So then your shelf space just continues to grow and grow and grow. So big opportunity for suppliers to really understand how do you partner in a way that you can maximize your opportunity.
Really, really amazing. I'm curious if maybe like once pickup and delivery like rolled out, once that became something, did that like have a little bit more of a push? Like, I understand it a little bit more now.
Well, I don't know that pickup and delivery or pickup specifically. Like I think that one, like they saw some increase in base volume, but it wasn't anything that they needed to necessarily do that different because we still had those separate hallways. Mm-hmm. Your items were still kind of limited to like what's in the store was what was online to some degree. But as the websites came together and the assortment online really started to expand, there definitely became this need for improvement in how do you find my item, right? Because in the beginning, when you just had the grocery website, again, like when I go to look at my ice cream, I only had essentially the ice cream items that were in the store. Yeah. Well, now though, I can see the ice cream items available everywhere, not just that are in my store. And from running ice cream, I can tell you that there's a lot of different brands and opportunities to buy from other areas. More expensive, not easy to ship. Still need to probably figure that out, but you have the ability to see all the different Ben & Jerry's flavors and all this other things, and you can see
extended assortment.
Assortments, and so now you got to be more thoughtful about like, well, how do I make sure I am in front of the customer? In other categories, obviously, this is more prolific. Ice cream is still somewhat limited because cold chain and shipping, but like barbecue sauce, probably a great example.
Shelf stable.
There is regional barbecue sauce, I feel like, in every city. So if you look at the nation of barbecue sauces, and people are very prone to like here in Northwest Arkansas, we have Wright's, which is really big. Obviously, I think it is getting a little bit bigger nationally, but if I'm in Kansas City or Florida or somewhere else, I may not know anything about Wright's, but I do know the local barbecue chain probably has a sauce that I really want and Walmart's going to carry it. So as you start to think about the national assortment coming together, in my one store, I may have had 50 items, but now when I look across the nation, I may have 50,000.
Right. That's such an interesting piece. I mean, the grocery specific angle is obviously, that's, obviously Walmart's bread and butter. Also, that's, it's also funny because I don't know, that was very,
I think is the big piece on the e-com though. And I've heard, I've seen some of the material that you guys have put out from the Cellcord side, and I think it's really good material. And if people aren't listening to it, they definitely should. And I honestly wish I had some of those, insights when I had taken over e-com at Walmart. But I think the thing that still strikes me that I continue to have conversations on that I thought people would have fully figured out by now is how important basics are. I often get asked, like, what is the thing that makes you good at retail, at e-com, at whatever? And it's not a complicated answer, honestly. The execution of it might be difficult, but the philosophy of it is pretty simple. And that is basics in everything. No different than if you're running a professional or school sports team or any sport. If you can't do basics, you will not be competitive.
For sure. Fundamentals it's everything. It's everything.
And so very similar to in-store, price, in-stock, availability, ship speed. You get those basics down, that's fundamentals. Those are table stakes. If you can't nail that, you're in trouble. And then for e-com, you have to get your basics of content so that you're discoverable.
Couldn't be said better. And what's interesting is now like that shift, like understanding that these things are all super important, but now that shift from I would say like a lot of brands, a lot of suppliers we work with, and they're getting these digital penetration goals. It's like it's pretty crazy. Like from going from, again, this super strong store, like that's what it is, to now that's the number one metric for so many suppliers today. Which again, it makes sense within this full picture, within the direction Walmart's going, to be this e-commerce behemoth, which it is already. Competing in this space, continue to dominate Amazon and total retail. And that's now the metric. That's now the metric that these merchants are pushing for. It's not just about, all these other pieces. It's like, what's your content score? What's your digital penetration?
If we back up a little bit and we say why digital penetration, I think is important, right? If I'm a merchant and I'm thinking about, I have this goal, hopefully they're understanding why they have that goal. And if you're the supplier, you should be thinking about, well, why is digital penetration important? The importance to this isn't that I hit this penetration number. It's that I'm being intentional about meeting the customer where they want to be met. And so typically when there's a goal and maybe you're well under it, there is data that shows in that category, that's where the customer wants to be met. And so if you're trying to achieve that, that means Walmart likely is saying, hey, let's take sports nutrition or something, just picking up a random category. If in the industry, 60% of all sports nutrition is purchased online, then Walmart should be trying to get to 60%
of DV,
of digital penetration. And if they're only at 10%,
you're way under.
And so like, why is there a gap? And how do you start to close that gap? And so I think once you mindset shift a bit of just like, hey, I have a metric, and you really understand, why do I have this metric and what's driving that metric, then I can start to say, how do I approach this in the right way? And so that's when you start getting into, okay, if it's 60% nationwide, let me break that down. How much of that's, direct to consumer, how much of that is within the retail space, and you can start to understand what makes sense for me to try to achieve. Yeah. But then also, if you know that a big part of it's direct to consumer, if Walmart's trying to play into that space to some degree, like how do you help them know more about that direct to consumer individual? And then you can put strategies in place, whether you're working with Walmart Connect, you're doing more upper funnel advertising, all the way down to your lower funnel, just search ads, etc. So I think really understanding the reason behind a metric and not just hearing the metric is important.
I mean, it also just makes sense just from a customer perspective, right? Everyone is online, right? Like you're saying, foot traffic definitely, even if it's staying the same. Yeah.
I think it was John, when he was CEO of Walmart US, and Tom used to say, what's the closest store to you?
Nice.
And in the beginning, people would be like, store 100, it's a mile down the road. And then they'd pull their phone and be like, no, it's right here. Wow, this is the closest store. And it's to everybody.
Yeah.
And it's not just to Walmart, it's to all stores. This is the closest store, and it's in your pocket.
Yeah.
And so that digital penetration piece, again, you think about it, you can have this on you at all times. I can't always be in the store.
Yeah. And so it's like, people look at like, oh, I'm getting pushed for 12%. It's like, just think about it for a second here, like it should be 100%, like it should be very high comparatively, obviously on category specifics, but if that's where everyone's shopping, and again, if you look at e-commerce versus retail as obviously a whole, the shift is insane. The shift is insane in the direction that e-commerce is going and has gone. And just thinking market share percentage wise, it just makes so much sense that digital penetration is going to be that metric that all these merchants are really pushing for. It's just funny, like, 30% is like a high digital like, is it? Think of, I don't know, obviously every generation is different, but I just think for myself, right? You mentioned how often are you going to the store. For myself, right? Especially if you're busy or you're the whole day, you're just out, like, you don't have time to just go to hit a store for this. Everything is being purchased through your phone. Everything is going there. My digital penetration is probably 90%, of everything I buy. So that makes sense that, a lot of products today should be 30% seems low. Obviously you have an expanded assortment, and that's where now you leveraging marketplace and you leveraging, let's say 1p.com just to continuously bring more digital, and maybe overall, if you look, maybe your share within a category could be higher, but it makes so much sense now for an individual item or subset of items that you should have that higher metric. It just, very common sense.
Absolutely.
Really great. I think this has been really solid. I love the history. We got the history piece.
Yeah, probably a little too deep there. Sorry.
No, I think it just gives us so much more of that authenticity to, like, we're not just here just like information. Like, no, here's a little bit about the reality. Here's what it's like over here. And, I don't know how many people listening have been here in the first place, or maybe just been in and out for a quick line review. Didn't really get a chance to do anything. Like, check out Downton Bentonville, like, get out, go to a bar and, like, see, like, what the heck, like, this major, I don't know, I was somewhere last night, it was like a 20-foot piece of art on the wall. I'm like, what the heck? It was like, this is...
Yeah, there's an incredible food scene that has developed in the last 5 years here, with some really talented chefs in the area. And there's, again, like, keep leaning into the culture and the art. Like, everywhere you turn, there's new things going up that are just incredible. You got that Momentary, which is part of the museum, and it has a 6th floor, bar that you can go to. But down below, there's a bunch of other art installations that you can see while you're there. It's just really cool history everywhere here in Northwest Arkansas. And I do think that, in a way, that all is getting pulled into Walmart, and Walmart as a culture. And their new campus, you gotta come see the new campus. It's incredible.
Oh, man. It's beautiful. And it's also one last piece, which I think it's fascinating. It's like on the culture piece. One last time, I was getting out of LA last night at one of these bars. I was like 8-9 o'clock. I walk in, there's like people on their laptops working out here. I'm like, what? Obviously work-life balance, yada, yada, yada. But, like, just seeing that, like, people are out here they're sitting down, they're working, they're drinking, they're having a good time, but they're also, like, it's got that hustle mentality while also appreciation of the modern and taking it easy lifestyle. So it's really cool balance that exists here. It's not something you would expect outside of, maybe a major metropolitan like New York or even LA. Like, I just felt like I was like, oh, I'm in a really cool part of downtown right now. And I'm like, if I sent you my location in the US, you'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And the cool thing is, for now, everything's still only about 15 minutes away.
You could even, like, just within certain areas, just walking around, the amount of stores, bars, just in a short restaurants, just in a short walk, and it's right from the office. So you don't even
Yeah, I mean, you could have some pretty cool office spaces around here that it's great for the associates because they're so close to activities, or they're close to great lunch locations. Like, it's close to home.
Yeah,
it's a nice place to live and get to work.
Yeah, can't wait to see it evolve. All right, Dallas, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
This has been super informative. Can't wait to do more. I'd love to have you again on in the future.
That'd be great. Still can't believe I was number one.
Yeah,
awesome. What a surprise.
Hopefully we release it in the right order.
That would be interesting, right? Maybe you would release a different one first. You said first guest, not necessarily first episode.
No. First
got some leeway.
Yeah, first guest. Yeah. Amazing.
Well, thanks, David. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks so much, Zach. Alrighty.